What is up, guys? Michael here, bringing another video today. I'm so excited to have my boy Donovan Erskine on today. Here to talk about movies, here to talk about his life, here to talk about games. Donovan, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great, Michael. How have you been, dude?
Chilling, brother. We haven't talked in a minute. I think the last time we talked was actually for another friend of ours, Paige, when we were talking about Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think that was the last time
Oh
we
yeah,
talked.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah,
It was like
good
a million years
times,
ago.
dude. For real, a lot of time has passed since then. Since Falcon and Winter Soldier, that was like a year and a half ago. It feels like, at least by now. But when we met, we actually have met through friend of the show, friend in real life, Sabrina Ramirez, through her Patreon, and we've just gotten to talking. And I really, dude, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate your fandom for certain things that I also love. As the audience can tell if you're watching the video of this, Donovan has a Four West shirt on, which if you've seen the new Scream, or if you've seen any Scream, you probably recognize the font. And we're totally going to jump into that. But first things first, I always like to ask, what's the first movie or what's the most recent movie that you've seen, Donovan?
Okay, the last movie I watched was Wild Things. 1998.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, with a very fitting
Yeah, I was just gonna say this is perfect.
yeah, in a featured role. I watched it with a few friends on a whim. We were literally just scrolling through Netflix, and we're like, that sounds really weird. Like the movie, we were like, all these people in it, like Denise Richards, Kevin Bacon, Bill Murray's in this thing. I'm like, I've never heard of this movie. So I
Really?
started. No, I don't think I'd ever heard of it, but it's
Oh wow,
so
okay.
good.
Dude,
I
yes.
like it. It's I love like a good I mean everyone loves a good plot twist in movies, but I love
For sure.
movies that like give you a plot twist and you're like, oh shit, okay. And then it's like, here's another one. Oh, and here's another one. And you're just like, how deep does this rabbit hole
Dude,
go?
yes.
And that movie just unravels and unravels up
Mhm.
until like the very last second. I'm like, that's amazing. It's great.
Dude, yeah, and it's a shame because I feel like despite how good that movie is, I love it a lot too. I have like a really big soft spot, guilty pleasure zone in my heart for Wild Things. It's a shame because I feel like a lot of the quality of that movie gets overshadowed by like the very iconic sexual encounters in this movie have completely overshadowed like any good praise about the story or the acting or anything of that nature. But I'm so happy that you saw it. I think that movie is such a gem of the 90s, and the whole cast is so good. Bill Murray is like in a different realm than everyone else in that movie, and he's just like having the time of his life. It's amazing, man. It's amazing. But oh man, I'm trying to think of the last movie I saw. Honestly, it might have been Enemy. Have you seen that one before?
I haven't seen Enemy, no. How was it?
Enemy is really, really good. I'm sure you're familiar with Denis Villeneuve, who did like Dune and Prisoners and all that. It's really good, dude. I'd recommend watching it, but it's like a trippy movie. And I watched it way too late at night. And honestly, dude, it kept me up. If like, I don't want to spoil anything about it for those who haven't seen it, or for you, just in case you want to see it, because I definitely recommend it. It has to do with like doppelgangers, and Jake Gyllenhaal is the lead, and it is really, really unsettling. That kind of stuff, dude, is just like beyond supernatural, just so unnatural that it gets under my skin so easily. Wild Things also honestly gets under my skin once the plot twist of that movie gets going.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it can be upsetting in a lot of interesting ways.
Yes. I also don't think they could make a movie like that now, ever.
Probably not. No, you'd have to twist some of those elements up, but
for sure,
very much of its era. But,
absolutely. Hasn't aged poorly though. I haven't seen it in a minute, but I feel like it hasn't aged too poorly, at least in the sense of content wise, I should say. Yeah. But dude, I have to ask you, because you're both a huge lover of film and video games. I guess where I want to start is which love began first, and did one tie into the other?
Ooh, that's actually an interesting question. Like, which came first? It's funny because like people always ask like, oh, what's your like earliest memory? And I always say that, like, the one I think is my earliest is from like 2003, where I was like lined up sitting on the floor outside of a theater with my mom to see Finding Nemo.
Oh wow!
And I remember like I remember seeing that movie in theaters when I was little, and like Emperor's New Groove and Lilo and Stitch and like so many movies of like the early 2000s, just like defined those years for me. But I mean, games were right there with it, because it was like, I mean, my dad was like big into games. He bought me like my Xbox and my PlayStation, playing like Halo, getting to like Elder Scrolls, Oblivion, Pokemon, all that stuff. If I had to pick one, I'd say early days for me, it was video games probably over movies. I mean, like anybody, I mean, I like movies as much as the next guy, but it wasn't until like maybe high school that I actually like had a real passion for it and kind of like circled back and started to look
For
at it as
sure.
more as like a 2 hour feature or something like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'd probably put video games first in that regard.
Gotcha. And then what was your first like gaming experience that kind of shook you and you were like, this is beyond just having fun. Like this is a new medium of arts.
Uh, I remember. I know I mentioned Pokemon. I remember like
Mhm.
playing Pokemon like Emerald and like leaving my house and like walking down the street and like going to people's houses and trading with them and battling and just that ecosystem. I remember like being on
Yeah.
the school bus with my Game Boy, hiding it in my pocket, walking through the halls and stuff like that. But I think one of the more like I guess quote unquote gamer moments was around like when Halo 2 was out, and we would just play that game all night. Like we would get like a 12 pack. Like I'm like 8 years old by the way, playing Halo 2. I just remember
That's amazing.
I remember my dad. I was like, "Can I play?" And he's like, "This game's rated M, like it's 17 and plus." He's like, "You got to make me one promise." He's like, "You won't try to do anything in this game like to a real person."
Oh yeah, no.
I was like, "No, of course not." At 8 years old, I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, energy swords and like,
Just dual wielding SMGs, killing
yeah,
aliens.
right. But I mean, he was right though to have set that
Oh,
expectation in the beginning.
absolutely, absolutely.
I just remember playing that game until the sun came up, which is like something I can't even do now. That's like I don't feel old, but that's one thing that does make me feel old. I'm like I cannot pull an all nighter like
Yeah,
in
man.
2022. I physically can't do it, but back then, easy.
For sure. I all nighters now are like generally only for work purposes now, if anything, and
Uh-huh.
it and the next day is completely destroyed. But like you, I remember hanging out with friends. Like our game was like the WWE games, like SmackDown
Yes.
versus Raw,
Yeah.
2006, 2007,
Yep.
2008, and Here Comes the Pain, of course. And we would play that all night. Like we'd watch a homie like make a creator wrestler, and then we'd like all just pass
Mhm.
them out making creator wrestlers until we all had some, and then we just did elimination chamber matches, Armageddon, Hell in a Cell, like, and just go in for hours. But yeah, dude, those days sadly are long behind. I think the both
Oh
of
yeah.
us staying up that late at least.
It's
Yo,
I'm
go for it, go for it.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you brought up WWE because it's crazy how like back then as kids playing games, like you made so much out of so little. Because I remember my brother,
Right.
we would do the same thing. We would play like WWE, literally SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, and we'd make characters. And that game didn't have like a very robust story, if I'm remembering
Mm-mm.
correctly. But like as kids, you would just be like, after graduating school, like I'm here to fight the Undertaker. And you'd like pass controller, but like, now what do you do? And I remember like my brother and I, we had a Star Wars game. I think it was just like Revenge of the Sith, the game. I think
That
that was
game
just
was
the one.
dude. That game was
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
And I remember it had a mode where you could literally just fight like any two characters,
Mm-hmm.
and we would do that for hours, and we would like make up our own Star Wars movie. Like, why is
Yes,
Obi-Wan
dude.
fighting Yoda? And we'd like have this deep narrative, and I'm just it was
Yes,
cool.
dude. I mean, I think like when you brought up like Pokemon Emerald, I feel like we are the last generation that got to feel that like communal aspect of game, or like having people like homies like come over and like to play
Yeah,
games. You know what I mean? Like that. I mean, of course, I have friends over. We play 2K or play Rock Band or whatever, but we'll never like plan for that anymore. You used to have to do that to even play two people, let alone like 6 or 7 or 8 or beyond. It's insane.
yeah, it's all online now, which is fine. I mean, I love playing games online. It's
For
definitely more
sure.
convenient. It makes sense, but it's definitely a lost art. All
Yeah,
the older
man.
days.
Yeah, man. I do miss the days of like split screen co-op Splinter Cell. I don't know if you were like familiar, like super familiar with the Splinter Cell old games at least, and like all of them had fantastic co-op campaigns, and I would play those for days. And I still have those games on my Xbox One. Like all now they're all backwards. I still go into them all the time.
Yeah, they need to bring Splinter Cell back. I can't believe like I work in games and it's even we wonder like what is Ubisoft doing like just sleeping on the Splinter Cell
I
games
think
like they're
about
just
that
sitting on a
every
fortune.
day, dude. I think about that every day of my life. But since you've mentioned working in games, I do want to get into you work for
Mhm.
Shack News.
Yes.
How did you get that opportunity in that role? Because it seems like you're having a ton of fun over there, which makes it
Yeah,
amazing for a job.
I really like what I do and I feel very lucky to do it. And
Mm.
it started back when I was in college. I went to Bowie State University in Maryland. Coming out of high school, like I knew I liked journalism, just like media covering stuff. And originally, I remember it was sports journalism was my thing coming out of high
Oh
school that I
wow.
wanted to do. yeah, I wanted to do like, I was like, I'm gonna be on ESPN or like Bleacher Report. And then I realized like when you look at like a lot of those sports talk shows, like half the panel or even like 75-80% of the panel these days is like former players. Like it's not
Yeah,
really,
man.
yeah, there's not many like true like trained journalists, which is fine. Like, I mean, I love watching like past players break down the game. Like, there's no shade to them. But I was like, I don't know if I want to go to school for 4 years to learn sports journalism just for like LeBron James to take my job
Yeah, man.
at ESPN. Because it's like, who are you gonna hire, right? Like, you to
For
take
sure.
LeBron or the like studies? No, you're gonna take LeBron.
It's understandable. We have to give them that. As much as we love you here,
Yeah.
Donovan, it is understandable.
Yeah, I would concede my position to that. But I was like, another thing I love to talk about is games. And at the time I was big into IGN, G4. If you remember, like G4 was on
Dude, after you finish this, we're gonna get into G4 right now. Yes,
oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to. But I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that stuff. So I was a freshman in college, and there was a woman that wrote for IGN at the time. Her name was Alana Pierce. She currently writes for Sony Santa Monica. She's doing great things for herself. But I ran into her. I say ran into her. I went to a panel to talk to her at New York Comic Con in 2016, and I was like, I'm like in school for journalism. I want to get into like gaming journalism. I know everybody wants to do it. It's a very competitive field. What is like a good like realistic first step? And she just gave me a bunch of advice. She talked to me for a few minutes at this panel. She was just talking about you got to start small. A lot of people think that they're gonna like just write for GameSpot or IGN. And that's just how it's gonna work. She's like, you got to climb the ladder, look at smaller outlets. So I was like, all right. And I went back to school that week, and I spent like 6-7 hours just finding every video game outlet I could.
Wow.
Going to their contact page, finding their editor in chief, seeing if they had a Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, emailing them, DMing them. I was lucky enough to find Shaq News. I tweeted Asif Khan. He's my boss, owns the website. He bought it right around 2014, 2015-ish, somewhere around there.
Gotcha.
I tweeted him. I was like, hey, I'd love to talk to you about Shaq News if you're interested. And he's like, yeah, shoot me a DM. I was like, hey, I'm in college. I really want to do this. I'd love to write for your website as an intern. You can pay me in peanuts and M&Ms. I don't care. I was like, I just want to like get my foot in the door writing here. And he was like, all right, well, maybe we'll talk soon. And like a month and a half went by, and he emailed me, and he was like, do you still want to do it for Shaq News? That's like the motto, do it for Shaq News. And I was like, hell yes. I hopped on the phone call with him and our editor in chief at the time, Steve Watts. We talked for a while, and they brought me on to just write like little news stories here and there. This is in like January 2017. I think my first article went up that February. Wow. Yeah, and I would just write like little news, like literally like 1 to 2 articles a week, very little stuff for them. But getting experience working in the industry. And that June, just like 5 months later, I'll never forget, I was in a booth helping record a show for my school. It was like a talent or something. I was like up behind a camera in a booth, and I get my like notification, and I check, and it's a Gmail invite from like, I think it was Airbnb. And it was like, you've been invited to stay at this place like in Los Angeles for like June, blah, blah, blah.
I know where the story's going. All right. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I love telling the story. I really do. But it's like the event name was like E3 2017. And I was like, that was a mistake. I was like, that was a mistake. Of course, me like being 18, I don't want to like step on anyone's toes. I don't want to like cross any lines. So I DM my boss. I sent him like a screenshot. I'm like, hey, I like just got this. Was I supposed to get this or whatnot? And he's like, oops. He's like,
oh no.
He's like, oops, no, I didn't mean to send that out. Ignore it. I'm like, okay. And then 10 minutes later, he replies, he's like, but yeah, you're going. And I was like,
wow,
holy shit. I'm sorry. Can I cuss on your show?
Oh, yeah, man, go for it. You're good. Okay, you're good.
I've already cussed. I was like, holy shit. I remember like I walked out of that, somebody like take the camera, and I called home. I was like, Mom, I think I'm going to E3 like this summer in 2 months. Which I should probably explain for folks that aren't like big in the game. For sure. E3 is like the big video game expo every year. It's in Los Angeles. Last one was in 2019. It just got canceled for like the third year in a row. Yeah, probably won't even come back at this point.
That's such a shame, dude. For real, that is horrible.
It breaks my heart. It really does. But yeah, it's where like you see like Nintendo, Sony, Xbox, everyone's like the holy like place for video games. Absolutely. For a week. I had never been to Los Angeles. I'd never left the East Coast. I live in Maryland. The furthest I'd been from Maryland was like Florida. And yeah, they brought me out to Los Angeles that summer. I came out to help cover E3 still as an intern. And it was just like a surreal experience being there. We talked about G4. I remember watching them like cover it, standing under the palm trees, interviewing developers.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I remember being there, getting to play games. I remember playing like a demo of Mario Odyssey before it came out.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was lucky enough that I even got to go to the PlayStation conference in 2017 when they debuted gameplay for Spider-Man when that was coming out.
Oh
Yeah,
man, that's awesome.
in
That's
that crowd
awesome.
when they were going crazy. Like
Yeah.
Last of Us 2 reveals.
Mhm.
Met so many cool people there, like so many journalists. I saw Alana there again. I remember I told her, I was like, I don't know if you remember, but you gave me some great advice like a year and a half ago, and here I am. I
And
was
now
like,
you're there. That's
yeah, I was
man.
like, I got an internship. She was like, that's dope. And I've been lucky enough to talk to her a couple times throughout the years, but that's always like a defining moment I look back on from where I am. So I mean, fast forward 5 years later, I graduated from college in 2020. I work at Check News full time. I'm a news editor. I mean, just before I was hopping on here with you, I was playing a game that I'm reviewing this week. I can't talk about yet, but I think that's live on like Wednesday. And it's dope. It's great. And I'll be in Boston actually to cover PAX East later this month. So
Dude, that's awesome. If that like your story. I love having people like you on, dude, like that just have like Brandon Hanna, who you know as well, like
Brandon's great. Yeah.
the way he was introduced to the Schmodown and the way you were introduced to the gaming journalism space are both just like amazing stories of just shooting your shot, talking to someone, and then
Dude.
your whole life just gets changed and you're like living your dream. And that just is awesome, bro. It's just awesome, man. We were talking about, or you mentioned G4, and we have to at least briefly touch on that and E3 because, and this will lead into my next question, but it really is a shame because I remember when we were growing up, you would read like Game Informer or you'd watch X Play or Judgment Day. I don't know if you remembered that show with Victor Lucas and Tommy Tallarico, and they'd be like covering all these booths, like showing all the games, PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, and it was like mind-blowing to see as a kid because it looked like a wonderland. Like it looked like a dream that I wish I could live. And I remember used to be a Fry's Electronics like 20 minutes out from here, and this is probably like 2004 or 2005, and they had like an E3 truck come to like outside the Fry's during E3 week.
Wow.
And I begged my dad to take me. I like begged him. And like I got in there and I don't remember what game I was playing. It must have been some James Bond game. I'm like pretty sure. Maybe it was Everything or Nothing. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is just like a bite-sized portion of that dream. And it's a shame that a lot of people will never get to like actually go to E3 now. It's insane, dude.
Yeah, I didn't know they did like an E3 truck. So it's like an early demo of like upcoming games and stuff.
Dude, I'm not exactly sure if those games are already out or if those are games that they were previewing at the show, but it was a E3 like sponsored game truck essentially. And it was just planted outside in like the corner of the Fry's parking lot. I remember them having a lot of sports games that I didn't really care about because I wasn't into sports back then. I was just like looking for a game to play, and then I saw James Bond. I was like, yeah, I love James Bond. I was a big fan of Agent Under Fire, which is like one of the first games I ever played. So I was totally with it. And that's like my quote unquote E3 memory, the closest thing to it. But leading into my next question, as E3 has come and gone now, we don't know if it'll ever return. And I feel like the gaming landscape as a whole, partially due to COVID, partially just due to other companies' dramas and allegations and things of that nature, a lot has changed in these past few years. How would you say your job has evolved with that since you've been in it since one of the last E3s until right now?
E3 2019 was the last one, and I did not think it would be. When you leave inside the convention center, they always put up a sign on the last day that says "See you next year," and it's got the dates. That's when they announced dates for next E3. And I was lucky enough to 2017, 2018, 2019. And I remember leaving 2019 and seeing those dates, June 2020. I was like, I'll see you next year. I was like, can't wait. And then, of course, everyone knows how that story went in 2020. But it's weird because like everything just became remote. Like there were no 2020, there was no gaming conventions, no PAX East, no E3, no anything. And even like outside of those conventions, what a lot of companies will do, like the bigger ones that have money to go around, like your Microsofts or Activision and whatnot, they'll like fly people out to their own events. Like in 2019, I went to like a Microsoft Flight Simulator event in like Seattle.
Oh wow.
Where yeah, they had us go to like a flight school and do all this stuff, but like there was none of that. So I mean, they started using like Discord and Zoom, stuff like that. Nintendo, you're familiar with like Nintendo Directs, where they
Yeah,
do all this. Yeah, they even when E3 was a thing, they weren't like on a stage presenting. They streamed on YouTube and Twitch their Nintendo Direct, and then like during the pandemic, PlayStation kind of adopted that model with their State of Play. Microsoft even kind of started doing it, their own little hybrid version. And I think a lot of those big players realize that like they don't need E3. Like, if you're not aware, like E3 is like super expensive for the publishers. Like
for
that booth
sure.
space, yeah,
Yeah.
for Nintendo, Microsoft, those prices to like be there and have that space, it's a lot. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And if you're Xbox and you can just stream it on Twitch at no additional cost from your headquarters in Washington State, why wouldn't you?
True. Yeah.
You save a crap ton of money, which is why, like, I think it was 2019, Sony bailed me. They weren't there. There wasn't a PlayStation presence. And that was before COVID, as far as we knew, existed. So the writing was kind of already on the wall for E3. We were already transitioning into that like all digital aspect, and then COVID was just like a 10 times accelerator for what was probably gonna happen in like another 4 or 5 years anyway. It just kind of like skipped right to the jump.
Yeah.
Which, like you said, sucks because I mean, E3, I mean, anyone that like grew up wanting to go there like I did, it really was worth being there. And of course, I say that from a place of privilege because I got to go for work. So I didn't spend like $5,000 on like round trip flights and a hotel. I was lucky enough that pretty much everything was taken care of for me. I know like, the last year or two they had opened it up to public, but even like the tickets were super expensive and stuff. So it's kind of conflicting. I can understand how some people were kind of happy that it was gone. Like a lot of people were like, all right, bye E3, like don't care anymore. But I think even those people are speaking from a place of privilege because it's like, yeah, you went to the last 10 E3s.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I remember talking to a guy at 19 who had bought like tickets. He did the whole thing to be there. And he was talking about how he like had to wait in like 3 hour lines for everything. He's like, I played like 1.5 games today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my boss were like, how do you feel? He's like, I feel a little like disappointed. And then we were like, would you,
dude?
We were like, would you do it again? And he was like, yeah, probably.
Wow.
And I'm like, but that's the thing, because it's just as a gamer, you grew up playing games, like that's where you want to be.
Of course,
E3 has always been propped up as like the place to be. It's like Disney World.
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
I mean, who knows? Maybe like the ESA, which is the company that puts it together, maybe they'll be able to turn things around. Bring it back next year. Maybe somebody will buy it from them. But I'd love to see it come back in some fashion.
Yeah, man, that would be great. That would be great. I would love to be able to go to one eventually one day and be that dude that stands in the lines and only plays 2 games. I would absolutely do that just once in my life at least. I feel like it has to be done. If you love video games any amount, like you said, it's like a dream. I think I would be remiss to ask you, because you work for Shack News. I know you were involved with this at least a little bit. I'm a huge Hitman fan. I love Hitman. I've always loved Hitman. So seeing that you and Shack News got to be a part of Hitman 3 was like mind blowing to me, dude. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's wild. First of all, Hitman 3 is a great game. That game is so good.
It's one of the best. And I have it on the PlayStation VR too, which makes it even crazier.
Yeah, I gotta try that in VR. That's gotta be really fun.
It's so much fun, dude. Yeah.
The new like Hitman games, the last 3 that IO Interactive has done, they're so great. It's like a perfect like murder sandbox puzzle. It's like those games know exactly what they are, and they just do it so well. But yeah, so in Hitman 3, they have a thing, like an ongoing thing where I think it was like featured contracts or something like that, where whether it was like a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer or other company, like they'd always collaborate and put different levels of the game with your branding and stuff. And like a little peek behind the curtain, like the company that does like all the PR stuff for the Hitman games, I believe it's either Terra Bruno or 47 PR, as it's relevant. These are names that people don't know. But I think one of those PR companies we had like a really good relationship with. We talked to those folks frequently. They always helped us out with what we needed for coverage, always good to each other. And they hit us up one time and they're like, hey, like, would you guys be interested in doing like being one of those featured contracts down the road? And one of our managing editors, Bill, he's like a diehard Hitman fan. So he heard that, he like lost his shit. He's like, we're doing this. He's like, I don't know how much hard work it's going to be. He was like, we're going to make this happen. And he ended up doing like most of the heavy lifting, designing all those levels. But yeah, he just went into like the level creator, and we kind of, I remember one you had like assassinated DJ. We were coming up with like little storylines for it, trying to like tie it back to Shack News. And I remember like when he made them, he recorded like video of him like doing all the levels to submit to put up on YouTube. And the content came out, and I think like a day later, some guy had like a speed run on YouTube of like
Dude, yeah.
level in, like,
people are crazy with it, man. People are crazy with it, dude.
He beat it like a minute and a half, and I remember Bill was like, I don't know how he did that. He was like, I made the level, and I don't know how someone beat it that fast. Which just speaks to like how dynamic those games are, where it's
truly,
like,
yeah.
There's a million solutions to like any question that the game asks you, which is why it's so good.
Yeah, it's funny because like you mentioned those speed runs, and I remember as a kid like playing Hitman Blood Money, and I would like never want to look up like a walkthrough or like gameplay of any sort. It's like I just have to figure it out. And finally, like years later, like when I'm finally watching people play this, I'm like, dude, this level literally took like a year of my life as a child. Like there's a wedding level. I think it's called Till Death Do Us Part in Hitman Blood Money. And I could not figure out how to do it for a year of my childhood. And then I go on YouTube as a teenager. All I see is this dude like drop a coin behind a guard and then just like kind of like shimmy by him, shoot the two dudes in the face, and then just walk out. And it's like done in 30 seconds. It's just like how do people discover? You know what I mean? Like how are people like coming up with these things? How much time are they putting in to get these levels in under like a minute? It's crazy.
I'm endlessly fascinated by speedrunners. I don't know if you heard of like Games Done Quick. They do like
of course,
SGDQ and stuff. That stuff is so fascinating to watch because again, it's always these games that you played growing up that you took like God knows how many hours to beat, and they're like, oh yeah, so here's the little trick for that, and they're like jumping over something like, wait, I'm like, what? And even watching like the Pokemon ones where they beat the game in like 3 hours, and I'm like, man, I remember I couldn't beat Cynthia for a week. Like every day I was trying to beat that trainer, I couldn't beat it. And you're over here like cheesing it. Or even like platforms like the Mario games and stuff. It's
boundary breaking. Like they'll jump into like a whole nother level and just like skip like 80% of the game. Like I've seen so many stuff like that too. And it's funny watching like Games Done Quick and like seeing people play like these Barbie games, like these old games that like no one's really talking about. And it's like how much dedication like did these people put into like learning and mastering Barbie or like Happy Feet the game or whatever it may be. It's like, how is this possible? But I respect them, dude. I respect them, dude. It's not easy. It seems like a chore for sure. Very laborious.
It's so much dedication. I wish I like committed myself like half as much to anything as to games.
Dude,
I'm
like, I agree with you.
I do not have that in me, but head off to those folks. They do some cool stuff.
Yeah, big props to them. Big props to them. I gotta respect it. In talking about like speedrunning and like these people selecting these games, I have to ask, like, what are some of your favorite games? I don't think we've talked about that before, between you and I at least.
Yeah, no, I've already showed my hand a bit. I've name dropped a bunch of them, but like Skyrim will always be like in my top like 3 favorite games. I know that like, I mean, now it's 11 years old. I think open world games have like kind of progressed past Skyrim, but like that game will always stand the test of time for me.
Absolutely.
Like,
I agree with you.
I can probably count 1 or 2 games that had like a vice grip on my life, like Skyrim did when that game came out when I was in 7th grade. Like there was nothing else I cared about like in my life when that game was out other than playing it. Whenever I was away from my Xbox 360, I was thinking about getting home from school, doing homework, whatever, and then getting to Skyrim, and just being in that world and how it felt like no matter how much you explored, there was always just some like weird shit right around the corner. The different factions. I remember joining like the Dark Brotherhood, and they would just hire you to kill people. You could
the assassination missions for the Night Mother, bro. Come on, you gotta get with it. Like,
go kill this guy in Winterhold, and you just go and you'd assassinate some dude at a campfire. And I'm like, well, all right, that's it. Give me my 1,000 gold.
Yeah,
and fighting like the dragons and how like the music would swell. It was so good. Skyrim still hasn't been topped by many games for me, and I can't believe it's been 11 years and there's not a sequel to that game out.
Dude, I know. I know.
I have a long running joke with my friends because again, I mentioned I live in Maryland. Bethesda, the developers that make the game, are in Maryland, like in Huntsville, I believe, like 45 minutes away from me. And I always joke with my friends, I'm like, I'm gonna like go to their office one day and just be like, so what's the deal, right? Like, are we working on the game? Like, we 2023?
Aren't they doing like Starfield? Is that a Bethesda game supposed to be coming out too?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Same Stu. That's this year, yeah. And it's coming out on Skyrim's anniversary. It's 11/11/22.
Wait, Starfield is coming out this year?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh November man, 11th, I'm excited. I hope it doesn't get delayed.
God, Don't even.
I know, dude. That's me. That's on me. I should not even said anything.
That's like a cursed word. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that game. And I know they announced like Elder Scrolls 6 was a thing
Yeah.
like 3 years ago, but like they're not. I mean, they weren't like actively working on it. It was in the same way that like Rockstar was
GTA 6 exists. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we're working on it. Like, okay, we'll see it when we see it. But I would imagine that after Starfield's out, fingers crossed that Elder Scrolls 6 would be like their next.
Hopefully,
big thing.
yeah, man. I would love that.
But it's a testament to how iconic and how long lasting that game has been that they haven't had a fire lit under them to make the next one. Because I mean, Oblivion was like 06, 08. It was one of those two.
360 game, dude. Old.
Yeah.
Old.
And then Skyrim came out in 2011. That was like 4 years later.
Yeah, man. At the tail end of that console cycle, and then we're getting it on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I saw them I just actually bought it too when it was on sale, like the anniversary re-release, like the gold thing. Because I too, dude, I'm a huge Bethesda fan and a huge Obsidian fan. I like Fallout New Vegas is like
so good.
My game, dude. Like your Skyrim is my Fallout New Vegas. Like I wasted maybe even years off my life just like playing that game and like just talking to people. But the dynamic that Skyrim offers that a lot of RPGs still don't offer now. I know people complain that it's like, oh, it's just endless missions. I get it. I 1,000% get it. But at the same time though, being a part of the world and upgrading your character, and like when you pick a specific class and just like, wow, I'm a Nord and now I'm great at archery. I'm great at like two-handed weapons, and you're just grinding in these little like submissions is like something is so satisfying about that. And going through dungeons, there's like so many of them, and I just saw that the new like anniversary thing added even more, which is awesome, and I can't wait to get into it. It's funny, I'm sure you're familiar with what I'm about to say. I was just playing Skyrim, and I actually just helped Serena kill her vampire lord father, dude. And that's like one of my favorite moments of all time in Skyrim, dude.
That DLC, that's Dawnguard. Yeah, it's one where you can either be like a vampire. Yeah, they had like the vampire hunters, where they had like the crossbows and stuff or something like that. Great DLC. I mean, you talk about like living in that world, like the immersion in Skyrim is so good. And again, it's just because like the random stuff that happened. Like I know you remember the war where it's like the Stormcloaks and was the Imperials?
The Imperials. And it all starts like before the game even starts. Like you're just like thrust into it, which is awesome.
And you can pick a side. Like you can just go to a Stormcloak camp and they'll be like, hey, help us attack this base. And you can you can just go back to the other side and you'll have both quests active. It's like, who are you gonna help? Just that autonomy that the game gives you is so good. And I'm glad you brought up Obsidian, because I goddamn love that studio too. Have you played The Outer Worlds?
I have, dude. I want to give it another shot because the first time I played it, I'm not gonna lie, dude. I played it for like probably like 7 or 8 hours, and I just could not get into it. And maybe I think you honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to the audience. It was my fault. I was definitely going into it like, this is gonna be the next New Vegas for me. I'm gonna never play anything else again. Like, you know what I mean? Because all the videos leading up to then, I was like, this is gonna be like the greatest game ever. And I still think this is a fair criticism of the game, and you could tell me if you agree. I do feel, and I guess this is just a problem with like open world or like choice games in general now, in my opinion. It just all feels like just so like A, B, or C, and then that's it. You know what I mean? Like, I just like what we just talked about in like Skyrim or like Fallout New Vegas. Like, you could just like run like 2 factions at the same time and just like finagle your way around like reputation systems and stuff like that until like the last second where you have to make a choice. You know what I mean? And it kind of just happens like organically, and you kind of make your own stories, like you said too. I feel like an aspect of that is lost, and I would say Outer Worlds I would put into that category too. In a lot of like newer RPG choice driven games. I don't know how you feel about that though. I would love to know your take on it.
Yeah, no, Outer Worlds is definitely one of those games where like when you're making a decision, you can definitely see like this is pathway 1 and that's 2 and that's 3. And you see they intertwine and stuff. I also think that game was much more like scaled down. Like it's just it's smaller, it's shorter. think I just found it was very charming, and like the characters I thought were really cool. I think the writing on that one was very sharp, but I think
I
just
agree with that too.
Obsidian, yeah, I think a lot of those technical aspects I think is what really impresses me in that game. But Obsidian is just like a powerhouse though. Like I remember when Microsoft acquired them like
Yeah,
two,
man.
3 years ago now, everybody was like, well, no, so they acquired Obsidian, and then last year they acquired Bethesda,
Which is
and
insane.
everyone's like, wait a minute, give Obsidian Fallout again, give them the keys
Yeah.
to Fallout, which I'm
Dude,
like,
yes. Oh my goodness. Yes.
I would not be mad. I would not be mad at that at all. But yeah, I'm right there with you, dude. I love a good RPG. Anything I can get lost in that universe,
For
I'm all for.
sure. Yeah. I definitely want to play it again. I got to. I was like a time where I was playing that game and Rage 2. And like they
Mm.
also felt very similar in a lot of ways. And I got burnt out on both of them really quickly. And
Oh yeah.
they're both fun, really fun games. So I definitely want to go back and check them both
Mm.
out. But in bringing up Fallout, I feel like I have a very controversial opinion of Fallout 4 because, dude, I've
All right.
sunk so many hours into that game, like
Okay.
eons of my life. And the story is not the best. And it does have that problem, which I just brought up of the and picking A, B, or C and just going with it. But bro,
Yeah.
I don't think like I've had more fun in like a subcategory of game that has nothing to do with story or combat or anything of that nature than just building settlements and just
Yeah.
making them insane. And I feel like every time I tell people that, they think I'm crazy. They're like, you don't play the game. And I'm like, no, I just get all the companions, I put them all in Sanctuary, and I just start building. Like, and I don't even play the
Yeah.
game. It's like systems like that, dude, I feel are just so unique and fresh. And like, I don't know, maybe you could recommend me some games because I need more stuff like that in my
Mm.
life, bro.
Yeah, I know I'm with you. It's funny when I first, because I was like in, I feel like a lot of people, it's either like you like Elder Scrolls or you like Fallout. And I remember I
Yeah.
was in like the Elder Scrolls camp at first. I hadn't really touched Fallout. I remember those games kind of had put me off at like a younger age, like Fallout 3 and stuff. Even those games are amazing, just because I think that the environment and the setting of them were just so like drab and depressing to me.
Dude,
Where it was like,
especially
oh, it's
Fallout
like
3. Yeah, man.
yeah, it's like I mean, it's literally it's a nuclear fallout and like everything is like dead or like dying. I just remember like coming off like Skyrim, I was like, I don't know, it just didn't like play for me as well. But then I remember I gave Fallout 4 a chance and I loved that game. But unlike you though, like the settlement stuff was really fun. I mean, outside of RPGs, I just love a good like city builder management game. I mean, I play
Me
everything,
too,
but
man. Me
I'll
too.
play like some city skylines, whatever. Any game where I can just like manage a community
You
and
like
watch like go to
you
shit.
like Planet Coaster?
Planet Coaster was great. Planet Coaster is a great
Yeah,
one. I even
man.
remember playing like Thrillville with my
Dude,
brother.
yes, I have my Thrillville off the rails case sitting right there. I can see it right
Dude,
now, dude. I can see it right
again, you talk about passing the controller off. Me and my brother, we would just build roller coasters, and we were, I don't know, we were just like twisted or what, but it would be like death traps. It's just like roller coasters that didn't even like
Bro,
finish.
in that game too, you can just blow like you just like the track's
Yeah,
gone. You guys all parachute out of here now. I'm sorry.
yeah, I was all about that's another game where I'm like, what studio owns those rights? Like, let's do it. Like, what petition do I need to get started to
Dude,
bring
right?
Thrillville back? Um,
Yeah.
but I
I
was all
think
about those games.
yeah, I think it's funny, like even in mentioning Outer Worlds and like the simplicity of that game, I
Mhm.
think it and games like Throwville too, like I do appreciate them a lot in that sense because I can't imagine like never playing Fallout or never playing Skyrim or anything like that, and then jumping into Outer Worlds. My mind would be blown. Like
Mhm.
I would my brain would be falling out of my ears. So I definitely want to give it credit for that and for starting probably like a whole new generation of RPG fans
Mhm.
that was their first RPG. You know what I mean? I have to ask though, are you a fan of Mass Effect?
You know, it's funny. I had never touched Mass Effect. Mass Effect was like a huge blind spot for me in gaming. I knew nothing about that game other than like General Shepard and that it was like very choice based and that it
Mm-hmm.
like carried over between the games, which was very enticing. I totally missed out. I remember my brother played it, but I missed out on it. Last year, I played when they released the trilogy remastered.
Yeah.
I played through all of one. I beat Mass Effect 1 and I got like halfway through 2 and then I kind of burned myself out. Plus, had a bunch of other stuff to play just for work, and I kind of never got back to it.
For
I
sure.
need to finish 2 and play 3, but one's great.
Yeah, dude, I love that game.
Holds up narratively really well. Gameplay, not so much, but I can look past it. It was
Yeah, dude.
2007, but story wise, it holds up. What I played of 2 was like a huge step up, like gameplay wise.
Insane step up.
Just yeah, the shooting, the cover, all that stuff. But just the again, we were talking about like choice based games. the way that those games like treat every decision you make is
Yeah.
so cool because it feels like every choice you make is like the world is weighing on it. Like every choice feels so consequential, whether it's like somebody dying or a colony being destroyed or certain
Dude.
characters getting killed.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Even like side missions in like Mass Effect 1 that you think like, okay, I just helped this person, like, oh, I just killed like 3 aliens and like I just helped this person find their wife or whatever. All of a sudden, like in Mass Effect 3, they're just like chilling at the Citadel and they're like, hey, do you remember
Yeah.
me? It's like, oh my goodness. And like moments like that, like make me emotional almost. Like it really connects you with the game. And it's a shame because I feel like the last game that I felt that towards, but apart from, I never finished it sadly because I was just so into it for a long time, and then one update completely destroyed it for me. But Cyberpunk, dude, like I was like a defender of Cyberpunk when that game first dropped, bro, because I was like, the side missions and story in this game is like so great, despite the gameplay having a plethora of issues. Like I could totally look past like the game crashing 1,000 times a day. Like I was just so wanting to get into it. I'm not sure I'm sure you have next gen consoles, but have you played like the new versions of Cyberpunk, or not the new version, but just on PS5, I should say?
Yeah. I do have like all the next gen stuff. I've only played Cyberpunk on PC.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I want to try it out on console at some point if I can give it a chance. But I'm with you though. Like I remember when Cyberpunk came out, like there are a lot of things to critique in that game, but just the story, the characters, and like how they immerse you in that world. I guess that city, like Night City, it really is like a living, breathing city. Like just walking out of a shop and like just keep like the cars driving by and the phones ringing and like I remember all the different side characters were so cool that I felt like compelled to like finish all their side stories. It was dope. I enjoyed my time with that game quite a bit. I wasn't like compelled to play after I rolled credits all that much. Maybe one day they'll drop like a huge DLC and we can go back to it. But I still defend a lot of parts of that game myself.
Yeah, man, me too. I'm still like I have a Night City Heat sticker from like when I bought the game at Best Buy, like on my desk right here. But I really hope like when that like next gen version drops, that everything just gets fixed permanently and like people could just enjoy this game, because I think they had something really, really great under the surface there that is just so special and like brings back the type of RPG-ness that we have missed dearly.
Yeah.
But in moving off of video games, dude, I would be horribly regretful if we did not talk about Scream in some way, or movies in general, but specifically the Scream series. Dude, what was your first experience with the Scream series?
The moment I've been waiting for.
Here we go, buddy.
We started the show talking about like a lot of firsts, like first video game, or like earliest memory watching a movie. Scream 1996 was like the first movie that like scared me as a kid, and I saw it way too young. I mean, obviously the movie came out in 96. I was born in 98, so definitely before my time. But it would have been around like 2004, 2005, because I would have been like 6 or 7 years old. And I just remember, I think my parents were watching it, and I just like caught like a 30 seconds to like a couple of minutes of it, and I saw like Ghostface, and it creeped me the hell out. And I remember like sleeping with all my lights on. I remember like I would have nightmares where like he'd be like standing like
oh no.
Like it really bothered me as like a little kid. I remember being in elementary school, where our school, I know a lot of schools did this, where like on Halloween they'd let kids wear their costumes to school. And I was in like 3rd grade, and I remember all the 5th graders that like thought they were like the cool adult kids. They would always dress up as like scary characters. So they'd be like Freddy and Jason and Chucky.
Oh man, like, serial killers at school.
Literally, which I don't think they probably really let you do that stuff today.
Dude, I remember like definitely not anymore.
There were kids that would wear the Ghostface costume, the whole damn thing, mask,
that's crazy.
The whole like shawl, like all of it, and it would creep me out. Like I'm sitting here in class like this as people are like walking by.
No, dude,
with their Ghostface costumes on, because Scream fucked me up that bad. But it became a thing for me where like, you ever like it's like reclamation, where like as a young adult I reclaimed that fear. So when I
get you.
Yeah, it was. So I kind of shut Scream out of my brain in elementary school. Then in middle school, it was 2011. Scream 4 came out. I went over to my friend Christian's house, and we were just trying to find something to watch on Netflix. It obviously had been a while because the movie was on Netflix at that point. He was like, let's watch Scream 4. And I remember thinking, like, I didn't even know they made 4 of these movies, because I remember watching Scream for like 2 minutes, and it like screwed me up. And I hadn't like touched that series since then. And I watched Scream 4 with him at his house, and that shit scared the hell out of me. And I was like 13.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I was like, this shit is so creepy.
Scream 4 is like a gnarly movie too. Like, dude, it is brutal.
Scream 4 was the most brutal Scream movie until 2 months ago.
Yeah, for sure.
That movie is very like savage and like mean spirited, not in a bad way. I love that movie, but like it's very aggressive. But like, yeah. So then a couple years go by, and I remember in high school I took a film class, pretty much because I thought it sounded like a cool class. I was like, I can watch movies in school, great, and that really like ignited a passion for film in me. Because we studied like filmmaking, so we would watch like Psycho. We watched Psycho in class, Jaws, Ponyo, like a whole bunch of like just random movies from the 70s, 80s, 90s. We would dissect them. We talk about like film technique. I remember we watched The Shining, and I had to write like an essay on like all the different like techniques in there and the stuff with Jack Torrance and how that character is portrayed and all that stuff. And we talk about like Spielberg and whatnot. And I think looking at horror movies specifically made them much more like palatable for me. Like once I looked at like a horror movie and I was like, okay, so like this is how the director's scaring you. Like when the camera does this and they move like that.
The
like,
tricks.
Yeah. And I'm like, so like the person in the score when the music swells and all this and like the cuts and everything, it made me see it in a new light. So we also had a thing where like you could also choose movies. Like we had a list of movies you could write about, but you could also go back and choose them. And I remember like I went back and like pitched to write about Scream, and I went back and watched it in high school. This is in like 2015 at this point.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, this movie is fucking amazing. I was like, this is so good. I was like, this movie is so good.
The best. It's the best.
Yeah, and even watching it then as not an adult yet, I was like 17, but as like a late teenager, I was still like scared like by those moments. I'm like, this is so effective, like what Wes Craven does in those movies. That script by Kevin Williamson, I just yesterday in preparation for your show, because I was so excited to come on, I watched the director commentary for Scream,
that's awesome,
which I'd never watched. I'd never seen it. I bought like the fancy steelbook they put out last year, and I watched the commentary with Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven. And what like a treat that was to like just listen to them talk about making that movie for 2 hours. Man. And they had recorded it just like after the movie came out, because in the commentary they're like, yeah, we're in pre-production now for 2.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So cool to hear.
Yeah,
I was like, damn. I was like, that is awesome. But it was like just hearing him talk about like all the subversion, the references to Halloween and the red herring, how they set it up, where like almost all the male characters in that movie were like black boots, because that's what Ghostface wears. So they want you as an audience member to be like, oh my God, it's the deputy, because he had the boots on, just so that they can pull like the wool back over your eyes at the end. Or like how 30 minutes into the movie, you see Billy like drop the phone and you're like, oh shit, it's him. As an audience member, you're like, oh shit, I figured out it's him. And then he goes to jail for it. And then Sydney gets a call while he's in jail, and you're like, "Oh wait, it wasn't him." You're like,
"I love that." Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
you're like, "Okay, movie, you got me. It's not him." And he's off the suspect list until one of my favorite lines in the movie, at the very end, where he's like, "We all go a little mad sometimes," and then he shoots Randy, and it's and I'm like, you talk about like screenwriting. It's so beautifully written, it's beautifully directed. I always talk about like women in film. Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott is like
Queen, bro. Queen Neve, baby.
Like, she's like the final girl. I talk about how like I love Laurie Strode, Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street is one of my favorites. But like I love how Sydney was like everything that every other final girl wasn't. Where like she wasn't like a damsel in distress. She would like
never.
She was
never.
She was the first one to run into the room. She like whooped Ghostface's ass. She always had that physicality to her. It's obviously a credit to the screenwriter, but also Neve Campbell, who like
absolutely
she is the beating heart of that franchise. And I feel like Scream is the only horror movie series that I can think of where you can say that, because like Nancy's great, but like Freddy is the star of like A Nightmare on Elm Street. Like 100%. No matter who they surround him with, like that's who you go to see it for. Friday the 13th, you're there for Jason, and they put a bunch of people around him. But like when Scream fans go to see Scream, it's like Sydney and Ghostface and then everybody else. And I feel like that is one of the reasons why that franchise is very special, because I mean Ghostface is somebody new every movie. Sydney is like the constant. She is like the sun that entire franchise revolves around, which I think is dope.
Yeah, man. Scream is I feel the same as you. I think that it's such a special series of movies, all of them, all 5 of them. And it's funny because, like you, my first Scream movie that I watched like all the way through was not the original. It was Scream 2. And I think that's why I have such a massive love for that movie. It's amazing. But I remember like seeing the DVD cover of Scream 2. This is when we had DVDs instead of Blu-rays, and I was a really young kid, and I had a tiny TV in my bedroom that had like a DVD player that you could like put DVDs in on the side. It was like a 2-in-1 kind of deal. And I remember like sneaking downstairs and like grabbing the DVD and walking upstairs with it. I would like always like read like the soundtrack listing in it and stuff. And spoiler for Scream 2, at the bottom, like track like 16 or 17 or whatever, is like Mickey's death or Mickey's revenge or something like that. So I would always like remember Mickey. Like I always knew who Mickey was, even though I'd never seen the movie. And then like 4 or 5 months goes by. My parents are like gone for like more than 2 hours. I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna watch it. Put YOLO. It in. It was a YOLO period of time in my life as a young man. Yes. And I just sent it and I was horrified, bro. Horrified. Because especially the way Scream 2 starts with Jada Pinkett Smith at the movie theater on her date. And it's like, this is so messed up. Like, this is so messed up. It was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. And when the movie ended, I was like, I need to watch every movie like this. And I watched I Know What You Did Last Summer. I watched Valentine. And, you know, I just fell in love with these kind of movies. And it makes me really happy that lately it seems we're getting a comeback of the slasher, obviously with the new Scream that just came out. We have to talk about that right now. Dude, Scream 2022 was just like such a great surprise. I knew I would enjoy it at least a little bit, but in no way did I ever think I would come out of that movie being like, dude, I loved it. Like one of the best in the series even. And every rewatch of it has been even more satisfying. There's so many little details that you pick up on, and it does the same thing like the original, where with Jack Quaid's character, spoilers for Scream 2022, they really play with that idea of the boyfriend the whole movie. And it's kind of like, is it gonna happen? Is it not gonna happen? And when it finally does, it's like, dude, Richie is crazy, dude. Both of them are just like Richie and Amber are two of the craziest in my opinion. And I loved the killer reveal. I loved the movie. I thought Jenna Ortega was amazing. I'm sure you've seen X at this point as well.
Oh yeah.
And she's killing it, dude. I love Jenna Ortega. And yeah, dude, it was just such a nice treat to see it in a theater and to see people react to like Dewey and Gail and Sydney and all the bad things that happen in that movie to these characters. And yeah, I would just love to know what you thought about Scream 22 too, man.
Yeah, I mean, spoilers, I'm obsessed with that movie. I went to the theater to see it like the Thursday night preview back in January, just a couple months ago, with a friend of mine who's like huge into horror movies and Scream. And it just felt like so satisfying and vindicating to be sitting there watching it, because it was like, yeah, man, I had become such a big Scream fan, but I've never seen a Scream movie in the theater up until that point. Yeah, man, me either. Yeah, 1 through 3 were kind of before our time, and then 4, I mean, I wasn't watching horror movies in theaters yet in 2011. So yeah, like sitting there watching it, and I knew, like you said, I was like, at minimum, I'm gonna at least get something out of this movie. But like just the first 10 minutes in, when the opening scene starts with Jenna Ortega, and she gets her phone call, like watching that opening, I tweeted it, but it was like, that's the moment, like as a Scream fan, where I was like, oh shit, I was like, we're in good hands, because it's such a good opening scene where one of the best in the series, really. Oh yeah, it's up there. It's probably like my 2 or 3 best openings in the series. It's so good. Just the way that like Roger Jackson, the way he like talks, his performance, how he's still so good 26 years later as that character. How it's so like they do like the turn to menacing so well, where he's like, well, aren't you a little fancy schmance? Like when she's talking about elevated horror. Yeah. She's like, oh yeah, you know, it's not like some schlocky cheeseball nonsense. And I'm like, it's just like, I like the movie where the girl's in the house and she picks up the phone from the stranger. It's just like, oh no. it plays on modern horror so well. It's such a fun
Absolutely.
way when they drop in like the references to the Babadook and they call out like Jordan Peele and stuff. And like, she's like, it's elevated horror. It's like got dramatic underpinnings, which I'm like, this is exactly how we all are today. Like
Absolutely.
exactly the shit that we say to our
Absolutely.
friends. And then I think of Mindy, played by Jasmine Savoy Brown, and her scene
Great.
where her monologue is like the standout scene in the movie where she's talking about like defining what a requel is.
Yep.
And she's like going through them and she's like Halloween, Texas Chainsaw, it's even like Star Wars Ghostbusters, and how like you have to bring people back. It's so
The
good.
legacy characters. Amazing.
Yes, the legacy characters have to come back. Speaking of legacy characters, like they're all so good in that movie. Like I know Kevin Williamson didn't write this one. Gail, Dewey, Sydney, they're all so well written. They're awesome in that movie. I think they used them in like the perfect capacity.
I agree with you.
It was good that they were like the side characters, like they were actually handing off the torch, right? Because I know like Scream 4 kind of sold itself as like, here's the next generation, and then at the end it's like psych, like
all of them are dead.
Yeah, it's like to hell with what you thought you were gonna get here. Yeah. Like we'll see you next time, which is great. I love the movie for it, but I'm glad that like Scream 5 actually is like, here's like your new group of people, and it's a great group. I mean, I love Melissa Barrera in there. Jenna Ortega, I already mentioned her. I think she gives maybe the best performance in the movie. She's such a talented
I agree with
actor.
you. Yeah.
I mean, you just mentioned her in X, which just came out. I mean, she's like shaping up to be a scream queen herself. Like if she keeps popping up in these horror movies, she can really be this generation's like horror movie icon.
Absolutely. And even beyond the genre, dude, I think you've seen The Fallout as well. I thought she was a stellar in that movie. She and X, like we just talked about too. I mean, she was great. And no spoil. That one I won't want to spoil because that's still pretty new, and I feel like people are still trying to get to see it. But the subversion within that movie too, with the characters and stuff, is just so fascinating to me. And I love just getting the rug completely pulled from under me, and that movie did that in spades.
Me too.
But dude, like we could talk about killers of Scream right now.
Oh yeah.
Who's your favorite pair, or who's your favorite individual? Like, how you feeling, dude?
Yeah.
What do you think about these guys?
I love that question because I think about Ghostface far more than the regular person should.
No.
I promise everyone I'm not crazy, but no, I'll exclude Billy and Stu because they're like, you can't like beat the original. But outside of them, for me, it's either Jill from Scream 4. I think Emma Roberts is such a good Ghostface. Like I mentioned earlier, how like mean-spirited is. She is so like pissed off, angry, and like
she is like evil, bro. Like she is like pure like hatred in that movie.
That the sequence at the end in like the living room where she's like trying to stage it all as if she got like beat, and she puts the knife against the wall, like
slams it in. Oh my goodness, yeah.
Rips her own hair out. I'm like, this is an unhinged person having a complete like breakdown like before our eyes. And I think she was like 21 in that movie when she played that character.
Wow,
I was like, what chops from like young Emma Roberts there? And I think I read that she was like wasn't even their first choice. They had somebody else that.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I forget her name. But she's so good in that one. And then to talk about the newest Scream, I mean, I love Amber. I think Mikey Madison as Amber Freeman is so good. I said in a tweet that her performance at the end, like from the moment that she takes out the gun, she's like, "Welcome to Act 3," which is a great line from her. For the last 20 minutes of that movie, she kind of bounces back and forth between like Billy and Stu because she has like
she has
the Stu like breakdown where she's like salivating and she's like killer reveal check blah 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 legacy characters.
Also, I just remember her with the knife just going that is like one of the funniest things. So unhinged, bro.
Yeah, she's like it's like everything she says in that third act is like put it on the t-shirt where she's like, you can't have a bona fide Halloween without Jamie Lee.
The way she says it
is she just but then she also has like the charm and like the brilliance of like Billy, where like he was the mastermind of it, and that he was the one calling the shots, like
the brutal one, you know what I mean?
Also not afraid to get their hands dirty. So if I had to go outside the original, it'd be probably Jill and Amber for me. I'm curious, what are yours?
I feel you. I mean, like I said, I'm a huge Scream 2 fan, so I have to give Mickey as one of them, because the one scene from Mickey that is like implanted like in my soul is like when Mrs. Loomis comes out, he just goes, "Billy's mother," like that.
Loomis? What?
Billy's mother.
That is like still one of the greatest things ever. I love Timothy Olyphant. That's where my love for Timothy Olyphant began. Also, like we talked about, I love Hitman. So Timothy Olyphant's always been my guy, dude. That's Agent 47. You know, I don't hate that movie at all. So definitely Mickey. And if we don't include the originals, I would say Amber and Richie too, dude. Honestly, I really thought the pairing of them was ingenious in a way, because when you rewatch the movie, you kind of realize that Richie ain't really doing much, dude. Like Richie is just like, I'm weird. I love movies. I just want to make a movie. And it's fascinating seeing him be such a cowardly killer. And I feel like that aspect hasn't really been like delved into too much within the series. And Amber on the opposite side is like one of the most brutal, like up there with Jill, I would say. I mean, I always think about the scene outside Wes's house where Sheriff Judy gets it, dude. And it's just like, that was brutal and shocking. I didn't expect that to happen. I really did not expect that to happen. And even the follow-up kill of Wes is just so insane. Like,
such a heartbreaking.
He had the most heartbreak, dude. The fact that he almost saw his mother's dead body like laying out there.
The fact that they both die not knowing like what happened to the other one or what the other one would do.
Horrible. It's
so sad. And like I like how she's like driving back to the house and she's like, please don't kill him. And he's like, why not? And she's like, because he's a good boy. I'm like, oh man.
Dude, that really messed me up. Yeah, that really messed me up. Yeah. And I thought they both performed that scene so well. And he is a sweet boy, dude, because like you see him like laying out like the plates like for the sushi coming and everything.
Yeah.
You gotta feel bad for him. And Amber just went in, bro. She did not care. Care.
No fucks given at all on her part. But again, I love the movie for going there though. I love Sheriff Hicks. I was not expecting her to go out like that.
Dude, no.
You talk about Scream 2. I think Scream 2 has like one of my favorite ghost face set pieces where they get stuck in the car with like the car crash.
Ooh, yeah. And I know a lot of people don't like that scene though. I know a lot of people don't like that scene, dude.
And I know you're right, because people say it was like Michael Myers or like how did he get out and around the whatever.
I don't care. I don't care.
I'm like, suspend your damn disbelief for the love of God. But no, when it's such a good moment because like you feel the claustrophobia in that scene. Like I remember watching it and being like when they're crawling over him, I'm like, oh, this is it. I was like, he's gonna like wake up and like kill both of them.
Yep.
And then like the hesitation to pull his mask off. I'm like, I'm yanking that mask off.
Dude, immediately, yeah. And I love that like Haley is like, in my opinion, like one of the most underappreciated characters. Like I remember people saying like there are early script leaks of her being like one of the original killers, which would have been super interesting. But I felt like her presence in the movie is one that we haven't really gotten in any. I mean, Tatum obviously was Sydney's original bestie, but you know, sadly Tatum has departed, and so sadly so is Haley. And Haley's presence in Scream 2, like she just like really grounds Sydney and like tries to keep her level headed, and she's just like a great friend. And I feel like it's such a shame that both of her best friends died in like horrible ways. And in talking about Scream 5 again, bro, we have to talk about Amber just absolutely gutting Dewey. Like that just broke my soul, dude.
It's funny. I said to one of my friends, like, that moment broke my heart, but I kind of hate how cool it was.
Dude, I agree with you.
She says the line where she's like, yes, today.
Yes, today.
And then like how they just like stands dual wielding the daggers over him. I'm like, damn you, God.
So bad, bro. So bad.
It hurts. Deputy Dewey's like obviously one of my favorite like characters in the series. David Arquette,
so good in Scream 5, especially his theme song, doom 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 doom.
Yeah,
forever iconic. That made me emotional, dude. I'm not gonna lie. Like watching Scream 5 when he got out of the car, showing up to the Meeks household, and they played that theme again. I just went, man, this is good. And then 10 minutes later, he was dead, and I was so upset. I was so upset.
Yeah.
But you know, dude, we love Scream here, and you know, I gotta ask. I don't want to end the Scream discussion here, but I do want to ask what your ranking of them is, at least at this moment. Mine always shifts. It's not going to be the same tomorrow if someone asks me, but at least in
Okay.
this moment in time and talking about it. What's your ranking of these movies?
Great. I'm glad you asked. And I have something I want to ask you as well, or bring up another
Yo,
discussion
please,
from
yeah.
the stream. So favorite, wait, should I start from top to bottom? I'll start from the best to worst. My favorite obviously is Scream, 1996, the GOAT. Nothing will ever probably top that movie for me. My number two, it's an interesting question.
This is where it gets hard.
It is, for a long time, my list was 1, 4, 2, 3. I love Scream 4. I think that Scream 4 was but I think Scream 4 was like 5 years ahead of its time. I think that movie came out in 2011. I think that if Scream 4 came out in like 2016, it would have been much more widely accepted. I think it would have made more money. But I love like the commentary on just social media and like influencer culture where everybody wants to be famous.
Before that was even a thing, too.
I was like in 2011, like that was bare. Like people were just really like breaking big on YouTube. Like that, I think that commentary plays so much better today with like how everyone wants to be a YouTuber.
100%.
Everyone wants, people like are willing to throw their morals anywhere to be famous. I think Jill and her motives plays perfectly to that. So again, Wes Craven, Kevin Williamson, brilliance. They were ahead of their years with that one. But I think that my second favorite movie now is Scream 2022. I really do think so. I think I go 1, 5, which I know the movie's called Scream, but for the sake of this, we're gonna call it Scream 5.
Yeah.
1, 5, 4, 2, and 3, which sounds crazy because Scream, I love Scream 2. It's so good. Like when I say that that's my fourth favorite Scream movie.
Like it's still a banger movie. Yeah, I get you, bro.
It's so great. It's got the kills. I mean, I think like Randy's death where he gets pulled into the trunk.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
That's like seared into my brain.
One of the most shocking moments of that movie.
And how they don't show you anything. Like you just see him get pulled in and then the van, like in broad daylight, just
and those dudes are like dancing outside the car.
I'm like, that is like disturbing. You aren't expecting it. And also on that Randy note, I'm thinking of it, something that like Wes Craven said in that commentary when he was making the first Scream, like the MPAA gave him a lot of pushback. Like they kept forcing him, like, oh, we're going to give you an NC-17 rating if you don't cut back on this and that. And he was saying it was like, it's crazy how they let movies like Rambo and all that, like machine guns, murder, man. But he said it was because like Scream feels real. Like all the stuff in it feels like it could really happen. Like the Rambo stuff, it's like there's a bit of like fantasy to that where he's like jumping out the helicopter and all that. But in Scream, like somebody like sneaking into your house through a window and like cutting your throat and whatnot, like, it feels like a very real thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, my 5, 1, 5, 4, 2, 3 would be mine, and even Scream 3, I've got some love for. I think there's a lot of fun stuff in that movie.
Yeah,
I love like how they do all the other voices on the modifier in that one.
Dewey, he's got her voices.
Yeah,
it's one of the craziest things ever. Yeah,
it's great. I like a lot of the Hollywood stuff. I mean, the Roman reveal is kind of weird. The only thing that Scream 3 does that like really not upsets me, but really like
I know exactly what you're about to say right now. Yeah,
it's the retcon. The retconning would like
it's like, why would you do that? Like, I think about that all the time. Like it does add to Roman's character, I guess, but Roman didn't really have a character in that movie. So it's like okay, I mean,
it's just when you watch it, it's painfully obvious that this one was not written by the guy that wrote like the other 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is it's whatever. But I do like though that Scream 3 still like has a place in the canon. Like I'm glad that like Martha Meeks came back in Scream 5.
Dude,
I think
she's
that's
married.
So awesome.
Sydney's married to Mark Kincaid, the detective, which is great.
Yeah, I love that because I'm like that all makes sense like within universe. Because franchise have the weaker entries, but it does like kind of suck though when like they act like, oh well, these movies didn't exist anymore, which is why I remember.
I hate that.
Do you remember before Scream 5 came out, like we didn't know anything about it, and people were theorizing like, ooh, what if this would be like Halloween, where it's like direct sequel and they retcon all the other ones? I was like, please do anything.
With Scream, it would be painful if they did that. Really,
like, if you retcon Scream 2, 3, and 4, I might like actually cry. I was like a tear's gonna roll down my face. That would have
been, dude. I can't imagine that happened. I also remember. I don't know if you've ever watched the show. I've never watched the final season of it, but I watched the first 2, and I remember back then people were theorizing like this is going to lead into the next Scream movie.
Oh yeah,
and it's going to have nothing to do with the original. And I'm like, I like this show a lot, but like, if you're going to make a movie, like you got to make a movie with the original cast, okay? But it's funny because earlier when you brought up the realism, I have to ask you. I know you wanted to ask me something too, so please do immediately after
Yeah.
you answer this. But have you ever seen the alternate opening for Scream 4? Because when you bring up realism and horror and NC-17, if you've never seen that, dude, I'm gonna send it to you, and you got to give me like an audio clip that I could put back into the episode of like your reaction to it, because it's insane. It is.
I might have to take you up on that. I don't know if I've seen it. I know like the opening with Kristen Bell and Anna Paquin when they're like doing the stab scene, and then we see like the actual characters. But no, I don't know if I've seen the alternate opening.
I don't want to say anything about it other than the fact that like if they kept it in the movie, like it would have made Scream 4 1,000 times scarier. Like the idea of what they present in that alternate opening is like, what the hell? Like you could not do this. But that's awesome that you haven't seen it yet. I can't wait to send it to you and get your reaction from it. But dude, please ask away of whatever you're curious about my love for Scream.
I was still curious about your rankings, but then I was going to ask you about the future of Scream.
Ooh, yes. Okay, yes. Okay, I'll give the rankings first, and then I also want to know about your thoughts. I'm sure you've heard also some rumblings of what Scream 6 is supposed to be. But my ranking at this moment, I mean, I like you. I just watched all of them other than Scream 3 and like this most recent rewatch of the series. And Scream 1's always going to be the top. Just because it changed everything. I mean, you have to give it it can't be beat. And this is where it gets difficult for me too. I want to say Scream 5, dude. Honestly, now, like I've seen it so many times. Like it came out this year. I think I've seen it like 6 times.
I was gonna say I think I've seen the movie 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, so I can't. I don't. I mean, that's reason enough. I feel to just put it there. I haven't done that for Scream 2 in a long time. So at this moment in time, Scream 5 for sure, and then I'd put Scream 2 because it's always gonna have that place in my heart. And like you, dude, like Scream 4 is like right next to Scream 3 at the bottom, but I love Scream 4. Like I think that's a fantastic movie, and I don't want anyone to be like, oh, he doesn't like it. I like all of them, and like you do too, dude. I even like Scream 3, like we just talked about. I know we've talked about that the least out of them for obvious reasons, but
Scream 3 has a Carrie Fisher cameo. I mean,
and it's funny too. It's one of the best scenes in the movie, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a great moment.
Yeah, and you know what? I also don't hate Roman, but like you said, the only thing I don't like about the whole Roman thing is the fact that he's supposed to be like have pulled the strings the whole time. Like I feel like maybe they could have done it in an interesting way, maybe, but it just does not translate well when you're watching the movie. But yeah, dude, I love all of them. But in talking about the future, Scream 6, I'm sure you've read like that little plot blurb that people have shared around where it's like it's like a Gale Weathers focused movie. I think that'd be awesome. But I'm okay with Sydney just like playing either like a tiny role or like a phone call even role or just like a one scene role, because I feel like she, like you said, she is the ultimate final girl to me as well. But at the same time, it's like, dude, I want her to like have a life, like let this woman like have her family. I feel like that was the moment in Scream 5 that we got, like where she's like, it's done. And then, you know, Melissa and Jenna are the new final girls, you know what I mean? And then obviously the Meeks twins too, being boy and girl, but the final siblings as well in that movie, the 2 pairs of siblings, which is ironic. But I would love to see like a Gale movie focused with like that group, and then maybe just throw in some other characters. I know people mentioned like her going around the country, like a ghost face that was like a serial killer, like going to different places and her like reporting on it. And I think that would be really interesting. But dude, what do you think about Scream 6? And how much would you want Sydney to be a part of that if Gale is the focus, the main character?
Yeah, I love Sidney Prescott so much as a character in fiction. And that is exactly why I would be very happy if she either doesn't show up or is very small, like cameo role, because I want that character to ride off into the sunset.
Dude, one of the only characters in history that I'm like, just never bring them back because I want them to be okay.
Yeah, I was like, let's stop traumatizing this woman. I was like, she's got kids now, she's married. I was like, let's let Sydney have her piece, and then we can terrorize this younger group for several years.
Yeah,
time. I love Gale Weathers. I love Courtney Cox as Gale Weathers.
She's great.
Yeah, I saw her in she did like an interview where she said that like they're shooting this summer. I know they gave it a date. We're less than 1 year away.
Dude,
March 31st.
I'm gonna say it now. You're coming back on the show to talk about Scream 6 when it comes out. We have to do that.
100%.
We have to do that. I can't wait.
Just shine the bat signal in there, and I'll just like
ghost space in the sky.
I'll just appear in the Zoom call.
Please.
I would love for them to get weird and wacky with Scream 6, but in a good way. And I know they've even alluded where they're like, we just laid out all these rules, and now we kind of have to subvert those again. I think you get out of Woodsboro. Sam and Tara are leaving at the end, so there's no reason that they would come back. I mean, you can always lure them back like you do Sydney, but I think you get out of Woodsboro. I guess the Meeks Martin's twins wouldn't be with them, but I mean, you could do something cool to bring them together. It could be a bunch of different stuff. I've heard someone pitch like, what if it was set during the holidays and they're all like back in town for Christmas or something? I'm like, that could be
man, that'd be so cool.
If it was like,
oh my goodness, it was like Christmas Scream.
Yeah, I was like, if you gave me like a holiday Scream, I was like,
that'd be sick.
So I could die on my Scream as a Christmas movie here or whatever. I was like, that'd be great,
yeah, man.
I even like your globe-trotting Gale. If it could be like,
I think that'd be sick, dude. I think that'd be so cool.
Would be dope. An idea that's been inkling around in my brain, and I'm like, if I was a screenwriter, I would really want to try something like this. So like, Scream movies have like a formula where like, if you know Scream, you're going in, you're like, okay, the killer's going to get revealed at the end, and it's probably going to be two people. They're going to be part of the friend group. It kind of goes back to what I was saying about Wild Things, where like they give you the twist like 50 minutes in, and you're like, oh wait, what happens now then? And then there's more to it. I don't know, maybe this is a terrible idea, but like, imagine like you're 50 minutes into Scream 6 and like the killer takes his mask off, and like the reveal is like,
I've thought about this for so long.
What if we get the killer reveal like halfway through the movie, and then like it turns out that that's only like skin deep as far as the twist goes? Maybe there's like more strings being pulled, or there's like a deeper message to it. Like, I think they could have fun with the Scream structure and do some new stuff with it.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think like, with the amount of characters that we know to be alive, they could do a lot of different stuff. I would love to see Holiday Scream. I love what you just mentioned too about taking off the mask halfway through the movie and there being something grander behind the scenes. I know everyone always talks about Stu is somewhere alive in prison, God, yeah. And all this stuff, which I don't know how I'd feel about that. I mean, I love Matthew Lillard. I love Stu, but it'll also be a bit of a stretch at a certain point. But I do think that like with this movie, the ability to kind of subvert expectations, it's almost like we're starting from square one now, because Dewey's gone, bro. Like, Dewey's gone, Sydney's probably gone, and it's like, this is a new playing field now, anyone's game. And I also fear for like what the opening kill is going to be. Like, I dread like Tara getting killed like immediately. Like, that's can you imagine like the Meeks twins? Like, that's just their one scene. Like, they just get murdered immediately.
But that's what scares me, because I'm like, if we're following those themes, Scream 2 is when Randy Meeks, that was like the big surprise in that movie, is Randy Meeks gets killed. What if like Mindy gets like snatched up in Scream 6?
Yeah, I always think about like Scream 3, dude. Like, Cotton Weary finally got his redemption, and then he just gets killed. Like, it's just like, dude, come on. So it makes me nervous.
If all four of those characters return, Sam, Tara, Mindy, and Chad, if they all return for Scream 6, as much as I hate to say it, I would bet my money that they don't all four walk out of that movie.
Absolutely not.
I don't think that all four of them walk out of that movie, as much as it hurts me to say.
Yeah, if I'm gonna put money on it, I think Chad will be this will be Chad's last film, probably.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. But I cannot wait to learn more about the movie. It feels like we're spoiled now, because it was like we got Scream 4 in 2011.
I know.
And we had to wait 11 years for the next one, and then Scream 5 actually made a F ton of money and reviewed really well, and they're like, the next one's coming out next year, and it's like,
which is like insane. Like, I almost cried when I saw that news, dude. Like, I cannot believe it, man. I cannot believe that they have such a quick turnaround. But respect to Radio Silence. I mean, I'm sure you've seen Ready or Not as well. I really enjoyed that movie too.
Ready or Not, so good. And that was that's on my wish list, I think, for like characters I want to see or actors I want to see join Scream 6. Bring Samara Weaving in there.
Samara Weaving, she'd be dude, she'd be great.
I thought she'd be a great opening scene character for like Scream 5. I was like, because you could play with like Ready or Not and stuff. You could have her in the intro, then kill her off, make her like the Drew Barrymore, or she just be a main character. I wouldn't be mad at that either. She's great. But I think those directors, Chad and Matt, like, even if they aren't directing every Scream movie for the rest of their lives, I hope that they're like a part of that creative team now. That
Yeah,
Wes is no
for
longer
sure.
with us. Kevin Williamson's kind of stepped back into a producer role. I hope that they're kind of like the guiding hand for that series going forward.
Yeah, they seem to have a great understanding of what makes this series so good.
Yeah.
Like they seem like fans. They seem like you and me, like sitting in a room and like trying to make this work in some way. And yeah, I was worried. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, despite really enjoying Ready or Not, I was still like, I don't know, man. Like I love Scream so much that like seeing or hearing someone touching it is kind of like blasphemous in a way. But I'm so happy that it turned out how it did, because there are a lot of other horror franchises that haven't had that same luck. You know what I mean?
Dude, I mentioned it on our show on Shack News, where I'm like, one of the great things about Scream, and I'm not trying to do the comparison thing where like all the other franchises suck, this is the only good one, but like pretty much every like beloved horror franchise has been like dragged through the mud, like to hell and back. Like there's like 9 or 10 Friday the 13th movies, and like 6 of them are like almost unwatchably bad. And it's like, wow, they really did like a number on that franchise. Like Nightmare on Elm Street, like you get around like 5, 6, and 7, it's like, I think before, like New Nightmare is great, but like
I love New Nightmare.
Like the few before that, it's like, what the hell is going on in this series?
Dream Warriors, all that good stuff.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even up to the one that just came out this year. It's that franchise. Like the original Texas Chainsaw is so good, but like that franchise has been through hell. There's like 2 or 3 good Texas Chainsaw movies and like 8 bad ones.
Yeah, and they've tried to reboot Texas Chainsaw like 1,000 times too. I feel like that has had more reboots and remakes and reimaginings than any of the movies we've talked about.
It probably has. I love John Carpenter's Halloween, but damn, did they not drag Michael Myers and Halloween through the mud up until 2018, which was a very good reboot. But like
now, I mean, they're getting back to that point. They're about to be.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of Kills, but they're like 1 for 1 now in the new ones. But again, it's like Scream is the only franchise I can look at and been like, this franchise was never like dragged through hell. Even like Scream 3 is the worst Scream movie, but I put Scream 3 as like better than the worst entry in any other horror movie series.
Dude,
like,
better than like the second best entry in most horror movie series. Honestly, like Scream 3 is not that bad. Yeah, no, we were blessed. Honestly, like it sucked as Scream fans, but when you watch everything else, you realize that this movie is a blessing still. That it ended up at least like this.
It has always managed to stay sharp, smart, and at least be decent. And I hope that we can keep that going for the future, man.
Yeah, man.
I love those movies.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm so excited to have you back on 1 year from now to talk about Scream 6. Dude, Donovan, this has been so much fun, brother. Thank you so much for coming on, Chu On This. It's a pleasure to finally like sit and talk with you about not just like getting to know you has been phenomenal. Not gonna lie, I've been so looking forward to just talking about Scream for a long time, buddy. And dude, I'm so glad we got the opportunity to do it today.
I'm such an honor to be on your show, dude. Seriously, when you DM me, I was like, I thought he'd never ask.
Dude, I'm excited. Dude, it's an honor for me to have you, honestly, because I think what you're doing is crazy. That you're living your dream right now. Like having all these opportunities, it couldn't have happened to a kinder person. So congratulations, man. And thank you for repping for Wes. That was I should have also worn a Scream shirt. Next year, they will see me with some type of Woodsboro branding material. I'm convinced. But dude, you want to drop your socials before we get off here?
I can do that. I'm on Twitter at Donimals _. It's like Danimals the yogurt with an O. Get it? Because my name's Donovan. And then just shacknews.com. You can see a lot of the work I do over there. Check it out.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on once again. It's been so much fun. I think this might be, I need to look at it, but this might be either the second longest episode or the longest episode, because I think we just went off on Scream, dude. And that made me that made me so happy. And I would love to also have like, maybe in the future, I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm going to put it on the cam right now. Maybe we can do like a little series of short Chew On This episodes, like each movie. When next time you decide to rewatch it, let me know. Maybe we can get that going as well.
Like I said earlier, you shine the bat signal. I'm there. If you give me an excuse to rewatch those movies,
awesome.
I am not going to pass on it. Let's do some more stuff in the future.
Yeah, man. Let's plan it out. Okay, awesome. Thank you once again for coming on, Donovan. As you guys know, I'm Michael. If you're watching this on YouTube, obviously you're here on the channel already. We do have an audio version of the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. You can find it everywhere. Chew On This. All the old episodes have finally been uploaded. I've been lagging on that. I'm aware, but they're here. So here we go. But yeah, guys, and you can find me on Twitter, Michael Chu for real, Letterboxd Michael Chu, and Instagram Michael Chu _ I think, and that's about it. And I want to thank you guys for coming on this ride with me and Donovan, talking all things Scream. If you haven't seen Scream and somehow you made it to the end of this episode, please go watch all of them and then come back and watch this again. I think you'll get a lot out of it because we went in deep. And dude, I know we're about to sign off, but I'm gonna send you that Scream 4 clip like right now. All right, guys. Stay in peace. Thank you for watching.